Did you know that only 10% of traveling stand-up comics are women? That is just one of the interesting and eye-opening things you'll learn in the new documentary Hysterical, which explores how women are changing the comedy game one joke at a time. Take a look.
Carol took a general home economics course, one which fitted her for that very important career of being Mrs. Johnson. She was glad that her college training had prepared her so well for home life.
The idea of what femininity is, and in a lot of people's minds still is dainty, quiet, ladylike. You learn the most ladylike thing is to shut your mouth and not have an opinion. And whatever your husband says.
Judy, welcome back.
Oh my God, it's so nice to see you. It's been way too long, and thank you for having me.
Way too long because we've been doing this, back and forth. You've been on the show since like the first year.
Yeah, the first year.
So it's been we're 11 years now.
I'm telling you, I remember when you were pregnant.
Yeah.
You were like perfect pregnant. It was really annoying. But it's so great. The show is still going.
I know. Can you believe it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right. Well, listen, you're still going too. We got to talk about this documentary.
Barely.
I got to watch it last night. I loved it. It was so well done. And let me just say that, hearing statistics like 10% of all traveling comedians, only 10% are women. Like that's surprising to a viewer. But for someone who's been in this business for a long time, what surprised you most in watching the documentary? Have you watched it?
I watched it. Well, what surprised me was how bad my hair and makeup was. No, you know what? It's what's surprising to me is how things have changed and how things have not changed.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was such a heart. You saw, there's such an edge. You have to have an edge sort of to do this, especially as a woman, because you have to put on this.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do this, and you can't be vulnerable in so many circumstances when you're a stand-up comic, especially a female stand-up comic. And I felt like the documentary really told a story, and the story was sort of sad in a way.
Yeah.
But it represented so many women of every profession, and. When you're a comic, you don't think about, I want to get on stage and I want to do a set and I want to make them laugh and I want to work on my act. And you realize how much you are pushing away all of this stuff just to do that.
Yeah.
And it's such a sisterhood. And it's sad. The saddest part for me is because I've been doing, it was Kathy Griffin and I were the two that were doing it the longest. And we're still sort of club comics. And she's more, big theaters, but just the fact that we never got to work together, the women. The guys were always going on the road together. There was this camaraderie. And if there was a woman on a show, it would only be one woman.
Yeah.
And you look at, you go back in time, you think, oh, this guy got a TV show and all his comic friends were writers or characters on the show.
Yeah.
We never got that opportunity. And I talk about the one club, Comedy U Grand in Soho, that on Thursday nights, they would have, this is how they advertised it, okay? It said, because I just looked at a clipping recently, it would say Thursday nights, all female comedians, because they had to double it down, That was the only night of the week we all got to work together and hang out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was surprising that one part in the film when I saw it was like, it had to be, and they said in other words, but like guy, female, guy. You couldn't put a female with it next to a female. It had to be broken up.
Yes.
And you think by now we'd be past this. You know what I mean?
We can't even elect a female president, the things that, it seeps down into everything, and the misogyny in this country is so unbelievable. And yet we're supposed to be so progressive. But also, it's so fascinating that, when I grew up, I'm older than you, being ladylike, being a woman was to not have an opinion, was to not be brash, was to not, voice whatever you were thinking. It was to just be docile and quiet and ladylike. And there's nothing ladylike about being a stand-up comic.
No, there's not. And which is why it sounds like why a lot of male comedians didn't want women to be comedians, because they said, well, they don't want, what was it, Jerry Lewis that said, I don't want to see them like that, or
Right.
degrade themselves that way or something.
There's a clip in the film where Jerry Lewis, who was notoriously anti-female comedian, where he was at the comedy festival in Aspen, and he talks about, someone asks him, who he hasn't mentioned any women. He was being interviewed, and it was actually Martin Short's wife, who had asked this. She was an amazing person. And so he said whatever he said in the film, but he also basically said women are to make babies.
Oh my God.
And it was, look, that's who he is or was. But he's not the only one.
Yeah.
He's not the only one.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when you think about, look at you. You're in a powerful position. You're controlling, you're in control. And people equate control and power with masculinity in this country. And it's really, the double standard is really, really sad. And you know what else really struck me in the film was the angry men. How men were so allowed to get on stage and rant and rave.
Yeah.
And a woman is crazy when she does that.
Yes, such a double standard. The movie or the doc it's a real mix of female comedians, newcomers and veterans, sharing their stories. I feel like I know the answer to this, but what really made you want to be part of this? Like what in your heart said, I've got to be part of this documentary. I have to talk about this.
Such a good question. Well, Jessica Kirson, who I love, she had come to me and said, listen, I want to do this documentary about women comedians and just really tell the story. And I love her. And I was sort of a mentor to her. And I said, absolutely. I think that we need to tell our stories. It's the only way to evolve look, comedy is it's a unifier, right? You're in a room, everyone's laughing. You can hate the person at the next table, not even know that you hate the person. Yeah. But you're all like, hey, isn't that guy funny? Isn't that shit funny?
Yeah.
And so there's that element of it, but it's also a weapon. And it's threatening because satire really is such a powerful medium where you can change people's minds and you tell the truth and we tell the truth. And we don't have a good relationship with the truth in this country right now. But I wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to be able to tell this story. And it's so realistic. And there's so many other great women who, of course, aren't included in the film. But I mean, what did you take away? Like just pre-talking to you for this interview, I could feel like you were like, oh my God, I just dropped my mic stand. Oh my God, this was so interesting. I didn't realize all I had heard.
And you realize that there's a double standard. You realize that, men get more opportunities than women. But I think when you hear it back to back, you know what I mean? And like how it relates to different careers and different paths that people take. And the fact that it's such a men's club, like it's such a male, like a testosterone club of these comedians, that it's just for anyone to think ever that women aren't funny too is just like, it's so close-minded.
Women, we have a lot to say. We see things you don't see, and that's what makes us funny. And we're all original. It's like they all think all we do, these guys, they're just going to talk about shopping or their period or being a mom or whatever. We have so much to say, but it's so funny. Like 3 white guys is a show, right? Yeah. You go to any comedy club, there's 3 white guys. It's like tonight comedy. 3 people of color, it's an urban show. 3 women, it's ladies' night out. It's like no. We're all just comedians trying to tell jokes. That's it. We just want to make you laugh.
Yeah. I mean, the doc, what I love about the doc too, it's, like you said, it's women sharing stories, comedians talking about their experiences, but it's also kind of part tribute. You have you talk about Moms Mabley,
Oh,
and you talk about Joan Rivers, of
oh,
course. But we get the new interviews from Sherry Shepherd, from Kathy Griffin, from yourself, from Margaret Cho. I feel like the female comedian, like it surprised me just talking to you that you said that you didn't get to work together a lot because women couldn't be together. But so did you learn anything new about these women that you already knew, but maybe didn't know at this level of their experiences in this business?
I always felt like it was a little, it had been a little different, and better for them, like it wasn't as bad, but it really was,
Yeah.
as bad. And when you set up the system as if, they set it up, and I'm sure in your business they do the same thing. Listen, we need a woman. It's only going to be one of you.
Yeah.
It's like they set up this competition that there's not enough room for everyone.
Right.
There is enough room.
Yeah, there
is
is.
enough room.
Yeah.
And they set it up so we don't help each other. But I feel like this is the beginning of us passing. Like, look, Joan passed the baton. She was a huge, like a major mentor to me. And we need to pass it on, and we need to embrace each other and not play this game like, uh-oh, I can't be your friend, I can't help you because that'll take something away from me. No, it won't. It'll just create, we have to create more opportunities, and speak up, and
Yeah.
look, you're a journalist. You look at The View or The Talk or any sort of show where there's pundits and experts. They always have a comedian on there.
Yeah.
And it's to tell the truth. It's to disarm, because they know that if you get into a pickle, we're gonna make a joke and make it better. And we do serve a great purpose. And once you stop us, there's no free speech. Our stories need to be told. Come on, women are amazing.
Yes, and like you're kind of touching on here, now is the time. Like, the system was set up for us to compete, right? Because there was only one spot. But they talk about it in the movie. We're talking about it now, and now is the time to support each other, lift each other up, because the more women that are working, the more, like they said in the film, the more they're getting paid, the more opportunities they're getting. So it's not about competing; it's about bonding together,
Right.
and supporting each other, which people should be doing all across the board. Women should be doing all across the board, so that other people pay attention.
And Sarah, I really hope men watch this.
Yeah.
I really do.
Me too.
It shouldn't just be, oh, let me see. It should be, men should see this film as well.
Yeah. Well, one review said it's hysterical and heartbreaking.
Right.
It's moving and entertaining. It's laughing and it's trauma. Are you hopeful for the next generation of female comedians?
I am. I really am. And I love how strong they are. I love how many boundaries they've broken. We were talking all about the other day about how in the 80s and 90s, you look at women comedians who were on TV, and we're dressed so androgynously.
Yes.
Because we didn't want to be, we just wanted you to listen to us. So, it was this, okay, I'm not going to distract you with anything. And, Phyllis Diller, by the way, had a beautiful body with huge, beautiful breasts. And she purposely wore like a muumuu and showed her legs because she thought her legs were funny. And she purposely didn't show her upper body because of the fact that people would objectify her and not think of her as just a person telling jokes.
Right.
And that's what we got to get past. This idea that, it's so funny when you talk about the Me Too movement, and so many guy comics now. It's so funny. They're like, oh, it's really hard to be a white guy. I'm like, really? I'm so sorry.
I know.
And it's also like, oh, listen, I don't want to talk to the women because I might say something wrong. The fact that you don't even know how to talk, like it's hard for you to have a normal conversation. Yeah. That's on you. That is on you.
That's seriously a problem that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you recently did your first live comedy show in over a year. So what was that like, Judy? Did it feel good? Did it feel weird?
I wanted it to be, you're like in your head, you think, it's going to be this amazing. There were 50 people in a 300-seat room, socially distanced.
Yeah.
Everyone's wearing masks. And it was like the Pope Mobile. There was like plexiglass surrounding the stage, and I had to stand really far back, but it was just a walk on a stage, and
Yeah,
people want to laugh.
I
People
know.
are dying to just let go of all this tension and stress and just laugh. And it's sort of the perfect storm because, we've all been in this together, whatever your politics are, whatever you think, we've all experienced this together, which is the perfect palette for a stand-up routine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in your book recently that you released, I think it was last summer. Yes, I can say that. You talk about free speech, and you talk about, that no one has the right to tell you what you can and cannot joke about.
Right.
Do you feel like, is everything still on the table post pandemic, you think?
I think my rule is that you can make a joke about anything as long as it's funny. You got to
Yeah.
make the joke funny. You have to craft a joke. And also, what's happened is people have gotten to this point where they hear a word, they don't listen to the rest of the bit.
Yeah.
People when you take away intent, nuance, and context, there is no comedy. And people are just reacting. Oh, that's it. I don't like that. I heard this. And instead of what is the comic really trying to say? And I use this example. If you were on trial for murder, your sentence is determined by your intent. What were you thinking? Did you intend to do it? And yet we don't give the same courtesy or consideration to a comedian we just want to make you laugh. And if you don't like the joke, okay, then you don't like the joke. But that doesn't mean we should never be able to tell another joke, again.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I would imagine that being a comedian in a time like this is so challenging, because it's hard to find the funny when there are so many triggers and people hurting and people suffering, but it's your job almost to find the funny so that we can find the funny with you.
Right.
But do you think that times like this make it harder to be a comedian?
I think in a way it is easier to be a comedian, as I said, because we're all experiencing the same thing. But it always makes me think about, the Holocaust. And you read books, and those people were in concentration camps and putting on shows for each other, making each other laugh. Laughter is such a healer. It's a coping mechanism. And if you're talking about a horrible situation like COVID, like these massacres, like all this horrible stuff, and you're writing a bit about it, it doesn't lessen the horror. It doesn't lessen the sadness. It actually acknowledges that it happened. And there's discourse, there's talking about it. And I think we have broken down so many barriers. Comedians have broken down so many barriers. When George Floyd was murdered, the following week on Spotify, the number top 10 download was Richard Pryor's bit about the police from 1974. Comedy is healing in a way because we tell the truth, because we don't have any sort of boundaries. We say the things that Joan always said this. I say all the things you're thinking but are afraid to say.
Yeah.
But laughter is a release of tension. And I feel like we know what happens when you stop talking about things. It's just destructive. And I think, there's so much sadness and heartbreak, but there's funny too. I mean, there's so much, look at us. I am wearing bicycle shorts right now.
I know, I saw that. I love it. And I just need to point out to everybody that you are a full-on comedian, like holding your microphone. Like we got on, you go, is this on? Is this working? Are we good? Like, where are you right now?
Shows in my hallway. Over COVID, we were doing shows in Central Park. I did shows at a drive-in movie theater. I'm standing on the back of a flatbed truck, and the audio's going into the car stereos. I'm doing I was doing shows. Hey, Holly, what's your problem? Someone needs an inspection, huh? Hey, Mercedes, you don't like the jujos? It was people comics are so resilient. They were finding ways to do stand up and tell their jokes because it's the only art form. And this is what you were talking about too. Like, we need you. We need the audience to tell us, oh, you've gone too far. We don't know where the line is until we've crossed it.
Yeah.
And George Carlin always said, it's a comedian's job to cross the line and make the audience feel good that you did, But, an artist doesn't paint a mural and then they're like a third of the way done and say, hey guys, I need you guys to come over and tell me what you think. Like, should I put the sun over here? It's the only art form where we get information from you and then you get mad at us because the joke didn't work because we're working on it. And then you go on social media and, it's such a ridiculousness. It's so ridiculous. Going to a comedy club and getting offended and getting upset that you got offended. It's like, as my friend Eddie Sarfati said, it's like going to a amusement park, getting on a roller coaster and getting upset that you got scared. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, you asked for it. But you talk about getting creative during this time and doing shows all over the place. Another place that's had to get creative is the theater. And you've been you're part of a new play, and its third performance is coming up, and it's called Period Play. So I want you to tell me, Judy, what is this play about, and what are you performing?
It is about girls and their periods, and written by women.
That's what I thought, but I hate to jump to conclusions.
No, you got it. And it's written by women. It's all these amazing. I mean, I'm humbled to be in this group of actors. Incredible writers. This is an example of what we were talking about. Why is it taboo to talk about that? When I turn on the TV, I'm watching sports with my kids. I hear about erectile dysfunction and Peyronie's disease. That's okay.
Yeah.
But a girl, like all this stuff that was disgusting or inappropriate. So it's really about becoming a woman, and the pieces are amazing, and the director I love. It's really going to be great, and we have to empower women. We have to empower girls.
Yeah, we do. One of the things that I love about you, and there's a lot of things that I love about you, but you use your platform to bring light to social issues and important topics, especially on your podcast, Kill Me Now. What have been some of your favorite guests, your favorite interviews so far for it?
Oh my God. I just, it's so funny because you do interviews, right? And sometimes you're probably like, all right, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And then it ends up being like,
one of the best interviews. Yes.
I just had Bassem Youssef on, who was the Jon Stewart of Egypt. He is a doctor, and he was the Jon Stewart of Egypt, and he's had to leave, because of free speech issues.
Yeah.
And he's here. His story is amazing. Everyone has a story. And that's what I love about doing a podcast, because I think people think they're going to come up and, just plug something. And I really tell people stories. Dick Cavett was amazing. I had Amy Schumer, Roberta Kaplan, who was she was the attorney in that overturned. She went before the Supreme Court, the Edie Windsor case, to legalize gay marriage. And she was fascinating. There's just, it's just so funny. I'm so fascinated by how people became who they are.
Yeah, me too.
And it's so important that we tell these stories, because representation means so much. For someone sitting, depressed somewhere, some kid saying, oh my God, you're just like me, and you could, especially as a gay parent, when I came out in the mid 90s as a gay parent, and just kids saying, oh my God, I saw you and I realized I can have a family and I can do this and I can do that. It's just really, really important to be represented.
It is. And I'm so glad, and I'm sure so many people are so glad that you lend your voice to people that don't have one.
You're the sweetest.
I love you, and I've loved catching up with you. And let's let everybody know, men and women, to watch Hysterical on FX On Demand and Hulu now.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I hate this Zoom because like you're talking and then, no, but just especially for you men who say, oh, I don't want any women that aren't funny. Just open your mind.
Yes, yes. Open your mind, men, and watch this movie. And of course, for all things Judy, visit her website and follow her on social media. I love to. I love you. I'm so glad we
I
got to do
love
this.
you.
I
It's
can't wait
so-
to give you a hug.
Baby.
This is the universal. This feels like a very unloving hug, but
I feel it. I feel it.
yeah. This is for you, Judy.
This is for you.
Okay. Is this thing on? And now we're out. Coming up next is this great comedian, and she's a female. Okay. All right.
You know how many times.
All right. I love you. I'm so
I love
sad
you
that
too.
I hope I
All
see
right,
you
well,
soon.
All right. Good luck. Keep up the good work.
You too.
Thanks.